Hey there, thanks for stopping by. So, you know, when you take on a project and you think, this is going to be a slow project, I'm just going to take my time, there's going to be no pressure on me to finish this at a certain point, I'm just going to chill and enjoy the process. Yes, that is one of the projects that I took on, and when I say a little while ago, which is how I like to refer to it, I mean, back in August 2023, I decided to make a wooden puppet. I decided to do this because I saw a course being offered by Bernd Ogrodnik, I hope I'm saying his name right, from Worlds of Puppets. While they usually offer a puppet making course which is quite a bit longer and more of an investment, at this point in time they were offering just the foundation part of their course, which was a lot more attainable money-wise and in terms of how much time I could put into the project. So I thought, yes, this is my way in. Anyone who knows me knows that I love a puppet, just love them. I have actually made a wooden puppet before, but this was a marionette puppet. I made it as part of a course at the Little Angel Theatre in London, but it was a super long time ago that I made this other puppet and I haven't carved anything since. And I think that's probably because I just felt a bit overwhelmed about how to do things like this fully at home in the shed, because obviously when I was at that course in London, it was just a week course, but we were able to get most of the pieces pretty much roughly carved because we had all of the bells and whistles. They had band saws and big drills and just everything you needed to be able to get a lot of the work done swiftly. Of course, I don't have all of that stuff here, and I suppose once I'd completed this other puppet, I wasn't too sure how to carry on at home. When I saw this course by Worlds of Puppets, it was very much targeted at people at home who perhaps haven't even carved before, who are looking to get into carving but obviously don't have all of the facilities and machines and tools, you know, professionals would have. The puppet that we're building is just a small puppet about yay high, and it's operated just with one hand and it goes along, and it's so sweet. All of the puppets that he showed are so clever, and it just seemed like a more attainable project, which would take me a while, but that I really wanted to prove to myself that I could do. Now, of course, there are people on the course who managed to do this within the month. Absolutely. This project did not have to take me over a year to complete. I wasn't rushing in any way. I was fitting it into any pockets of time that I could when the shed was a good temperature, when I had the time between other projects. So this project is very much one that was just for my own little soul, you know? And therefore at the start I wasn't really filming it because I wasn't really intending to share much of it. It was something that I was just doing purely for me, just to enjoy in between the other projects that I do share. However, as I was going along, I realised that filming parts of it was actually just nice for me to be able to see exactly the progress that I'd been doing, because it was such a slow project. Sometimes it was hard to see whether I would ever get to the end. So it was quite nice to be able to look back and go, oh, actually, this piece of wood that I've been whittling at, it does actually look a little bit different to when I was doing it last time. And therefore, because I've got these clips, I decided that it would be quite nice to share it with you, because to be honest, I would quite like to watch a video like this where someone was creating this kind of thing at home. Whew, so that's a lot of waffle. Thank you for sitting through it. Let's get to the good stuff. So I've reached the stage now where I've managed to get all of my pieces to a certain level of completion that I can start to put them together, which is the exciting bit, right? So let me catch you up on all of the bits that have gone before, and then I'll show you where we're at today. The next stage was cutting the wooden pieces out, and I would say that for an at-home beginner carver, this is the hardest bit depending on the tools you have. As part of the course, we were taught how to build our own tabletop vise, which came in very handy for holding pieces steady when trying to cut or drill them. But I don't have the best hand saws at my disposal, and it was very challenging to cut the more specific shapes such as the legs and the head. So when I was offered some help from my friend's dad, who has a workshop in his garage, I leapt at it. He has a bandsaw, so one afternoon I popped around and he helped me cut some of the pieces, which was so kind and allowed me to get started on the actual carving bit. The head is the most interesting but also one of the trickiest pieces of this puppet to carve. The other trickiest bits are the feet, but we'll get to that later. I decided to have the grain of the wood running down vertically through the head, which means any carving I do acrossways, such as the crown of the head or the bridge of the nose, is going against the grain. For clarity, when you carve in line with the grain, the task is much easier and you don't need much pressure. But when you carve against the grain, it's a lot harder to control the cut and you need to be a lot firmer. Whenever I am carving a section which is going against the grain, I always take a bit more care. Having carved a bit before, I do feel confident with the tools I have, and I know how to keep my fingers out of the way. But even so, it can be strenuous on the hands when carving tricky areas and tiring on the eyes from concentrating so much. So lots of rest stops to wiggle fingers and soften focus are recommended. Having mentioned tools, if you're interested, I'll just run through the things I'm using on this project. And don't worry, if this bit holds no fascination for you, that is fine. I'll add chapters in so you can easily skip on over this and carry on with the carving. This palm set of carving tools have been brilliant. Bear in mind, I bought these back when I did my first wooden puppet course, so I haven't bought anything new for this project. This box has 5 different blades included, all of them are super sharp, and I have never needed to sharpen them so far. There is a flat, a curved, a rounded and a V-shaped blade, which I use interchangeably as needed, and also a slanted pointy one, which I don't really use as much. At the end of each session, I clean the dust off each one that I've used and dot a little multi-purpose oil on their blades. It's something I was taught to do way back on that first course, and I've stuck to it. I was given these weeding gloves for Christmas this year, and they have now fulfilled an excellent secondary purpose. I have started wearing one of these gloves on my left hand while carving, which acts as an extra protection against possible cuts, but also helps me to grip the rougher surfaces. I mentioned this before, but we learned how to make this tabletop vise on the course, and it does come in very handy. I have a small pair of pliers to help me tighten the bolts, and an old metal clampy thing to hold it in place on the worktop. Side note, this clamp is heavier than you'd think, and hugely annoying if you drop it on your toe. Ow! I also have this What's-It, which I cobbled together from 2 bits of wood. I can perch it on the edge of my worktop and it gives me something to lean the wood piece against as I carve. It can wobble, so I should probably secure it with my clamp, but mostly I don't, and yes, that means I'm a big old silly Billy. Next I have a hammer, and this one is nifty as it has a hidden screwdriver in the handle. It is also though a bit annoying as a hammer as the handle often unscrews while you're using it. But it's handy if I'm feeling lazy and can't be bothered to leave the shed and seek out tools from elsewhere. Pointy things are useful. This old compass has been great for marking the wood as I've been assembling, and the bradawl makes drilling holes a lot easier. As I've been getting to the parts where I can add some details, I've dug out this rotorcraft tool which has various drill bits, sanding heads and filing thingies. It's not very powerful, but if you're not in a rush it can be really helpful. I've also been grabbing my Dremel, which has been pretty good for adding details, especially on the really hard areas like the feet. Dustpans are a must because, dust and shavings. And talking of dust, a mask is a good idea too. Alright, let's get back to the timeline. So yes, a whole year went by before I really started to work on the limbs, but going past that anniversary gave me a bit of a kick and I decided to try and get the puppet at least assembled by the end of 2024. I mentioned earlier that the feet were tricky, and a big chunk of that challenge was that the top and the bottom of the foot were carved against the grain. The leg, however, was carved with the grain, so it was mostly straightforward to shape. It's always the case for me that doing one leg or arm is kind of okay, but doing two is challenging. This is because you have to try and work towards a level of symmetry between each opposing limb, and getting them similar is tough. I automatically always go to carve the left sides first. It's the same as when I draw a face. I always seem to draw the left eye facing me first. And then I always find the right side hard to match it. I should really carve or draw the right side first, because then maybe I'd find it easier to copy over what I've already created. Anywho, I had learned a little bit from past me, because I made sure not to fully carve the left limbs before starting the right. I just got them to a rough shape and then tried to do a little of each alternately. You can see there is still a ways to go, but at this point I started shaping the pieces with more attention towards fitting them in to work with each other. I started lining the limbs up with the body and figuring out where to drill the holes which were needed for assembling. My little rotorcraft was the only thing I had with a drill bit small enough, so I sat for what felt like ages trying to get it through the wood. I soaked up a lot of vibrations holding onto it, but that was nothing compared to when I drilled the bigger holes later with an actual drill. I don't recommend it, but I so wanted to get this done that I just did it. I found some screws which were small enough and started attaching the arms and legs to the body. It's only when you do this bit that you start to see more issues with the shapes of the limbs. Certain areas were either skimming each other too snugly or blocking each other from swinging freely, so from this point on there was lots of back and forth. Attaching, checking, detaching, carving, attaching again and so on. So I didn't quite make my deadline of the end of the year for full assembly, but on 3rd of January I finally got the head attached. I needed a bigger drill for this, which I borrowed from my dad, but it wasn't charged up enough in the morning, so while I waited I did a bit more carving on the legs to help the puppet's ability to sit down. It doesn't sit fully, but it's pretty near, and I can always skim a bit more wood from the top of the leg joint later if I want. There were also lots of moments of practice walking to check whether the feet were level and able to skim the ground well. It looks so cute when it walks. I also worked a bit more on the hands and general details. I used the Dremel to help me smooth out any jagged carving lines and numbed my brain with the dreadful noise of it. Later on, I could finally attempt the drill for making the holes in the neck, and it was a bit of a rubbish experience. It took ages to get through the wood, and everything in the shed was juddering and falling off the worktop. I didn't film much of that because the camera was juddering, and to be honest, I was getting pretty tired and frustrated. When I finally had the holes big enough, I put a metal spring coil in, donated to me by my friend's dad, thanks friend's dad, to join the head and the body together. I secured it with 2 nails in the back. I had also made a hole in the back of the head for a control stick to be stuck in, but I didn't quite have the right drill size for that, so the hole is slightly bigger and I'll need to get some wood glue to get the stick more secure. So at this point the arms look like this. I really like the furry paws. And the legs looked like this. I still have a foot to make look furry, but it's almost there. Its head is quite wobbly. He's a bit of a woo. Especially when its neck was longer, it definitely had the old thing going on. This is a very tight fit here. Sometimes it can, skim and go through, but it is very tight. So I do need to figure that out, just kind of taking a little bit perhaps of this off and perhaps a little bit of the hand. Do that on both sides. I have to sort out the other foot because this one is looking pretty good, I would say. I think that looks quite fur-like, but I need to do the same on this one. And you can see that the screws stick out a little bit when from the sides there, which is not ideal. Obviously I've got to either find screws with smaller heads on them, which would be nice, or kind of create a nook inside so that can go further in. Obviously the head is the main point that I need to work on. This is by no means done, because as you can see at the front it's got some of the detail coming, but at the back nothing at all. So now that we kind of know how this head is sitting, yeah, I need to work on that, figure that out a little bit more. I also need to figure out, but at the end, about whether or not I'm going to paint or sort of colorize in some way any of this. And I'm not sure. What do you think? I really do enjoy the look of plain wood. I don't know, because it's got a kind of little jumper and trousers on, there's part of me that wonders whether or not to put any kind of colour onto the clothing bits. But then would it look weird if I did that and then not put any colour on the sort of furry parts? I think it might look a bit weird if that was the case, but I don't necessarily think it would look good to paint like the head and the and also I'm not sure as to whether how smooth to make everything. I think it's quite a nice look when you've got a little bit of the roughness from the carve. It's like, can you see on the legs, it's got quite a nice kind of texture. So yeah, I don't know whether to fully smooth that out or whether it just looks quite nice. I think it looks quite nice being slightly rougher, especially because of the type of character it is. And what do you think this this kind of doggy character, because the head is based on our Westie, the love of my life. As I was doing the jumper and the trousers, it did sort of make me think a little bit of like a little sailor kind of, or like fisherman dog. You know, the old fisherman dogs. I don't know. What do we think this character is? And what name should it have? So yeah, thanks so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed seeing this come together, and obviously it's not fully finished yet, and if I ever do get to a stage where it feels like it's fully finished, I will share a picture in the community tab or over on Instagram. So yeah, let me know your thoughts in the comments down below, and thank you so much for watching this video. Stay curious, stay creative, keep making happy, and I'll see you next time.